Ever feel like you're just wading through a never-ending stream of information,
Oh, definitely.
trying to get a handle on where news is going or how businesses are even supposed to navigate, the constantly shifting world of social media?
Yeah,
It can feel completely overwhelming sometimes.
it really can.
But that's exactly why we're here. Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take those mountains of information and, well, pull out the nuggets you really need.
That's the plan.
Today we're tackling some ideas that might seem miles apart on the surface.
That's right. Think of this deep dive as your shortcut through the information jungle. Our listener today flagged two pretty fascinating pieces for us.
Okay.
First up, we have 5 myths about the future of journalism. This is from the Pew Research Center, looking back from 2011, at some of the persistent assumptions about the news industry's trajectory.
2011. Okay. And then on the other side, we've got Mythbusters, Social Media Edition by Maggie Dye. That one's much more recent, from just last year, 2023. And this one tackles some of the common beliefs businesses hold about how to, well, really make social media work for them.
Exactly. So our goal today really is to connect the dots between these two seemingly different worlds.
Right.
We want to extract some truly insightful takeaways and maybe even a few surprises about how you can stay informed and effective in this, age of constant digital evolution.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Myths. Right, that seems to be the common thread here. Both of these sources are about challenging some widely held beliefs. Let's start with that first one from the journalism piece. Traditional news media are losing their audience.
Yeah,
It certainly feels like that's the prevailing narrative you hear all the time.
it does. And what's interesting is that the Pew research way back then specifically set out to dissect the evidence behind this and other similar assumptions about the news business. The fact that this myth was already being looked at over a decade ago suggests that maybe the narrative of inevitable decline is a bit more nuanced than it appears.
Absolutely. Nuanced. Now, pivoting to the social media landscape, Maggie Dye kicks things off by tackling this idea that businesses should join every single social media platform immediately.
Right.
It's almost like the default advice everyone gives, isn't it? Especially when you're just starting out.
It is common advice, yeah.
Yeah.
But the piece offers a really compelling alternative. It says businesses should actually begin by thoroughly understanding their target audience.
Okay.
Where are those people actually spending their time online? That's where your initial focus should be. This myth often comes from maybe a fear of missing out.
FOMO. Yeah.
Right. But in reality, kind of diluting your presence across too many platforms. It not only stretches your resources thin, but it can also create a sort of disjointed brand experience.
How so?
Well, it might confuse potential customers about, your core message and where they should even interact with you.
That makes total sense. Why try to be everywhere if you're not even reaching the people you want to connect with? The article lays out some pretty clear reasons why this join everything approach can backfire.
Right, precisely. Firstly, like we said, your ideal customer simply isn't active on every single platform. It's just not true.
Right.
Secondly, the quality of the content you produce and your ability to actually build a meaningful community, it suffers. It suffers significantly when you're stretched too thin. It's far more effective to do a few things really well than everything sort of poorly.
Yeah, makes sense.
And lastly, the piece points out, pretty smartly I think, that new platforms pop up all the time and not all of them last.
True.
So investing heavily in a platform that might just fade away, that can be a huge drain on resources.
So the clear takeaway there seems to be really strategic. Be intentional about where you choose to invest your online time and energy.
Definitely.
Now, circling back to journalism, another myth the Pew study addresses is that online news will be fine as soon as the advertising revenue catches up. I remember that being a widely held hope back then.
It absolutely was a prevalent hope, and including this myth really underscores the intricate financial challenges that online news has faced for a long time. The optimism back in 2011 was kind of that digital ad dollars would just replace lost print revenue. Simple swap.
Right, like a one-to-one replacement?
Yeah, but the disruption went much deeper. It involved, the fragmentation of the online ad market, the rise of programmatic advertising, which often meant lower returns for publishers,
Right.
and, of course, the dominance of the big tech platforms in capturing a huge slice of that online ad spending. So it wasn't just about the amount of money, but where it was going and the the terms under which it was being generated.
Right. It wasn't just a simple equation of print dollars moving online. The whole economic landscape shifted underneath them.
Exactly.
Now, switching back to social media, another myth that really jumped out at me was the idea to ignore negative comments and feedback. That feels completely counterintuitive to building any kind of positive relationship.
It truly is.
Hmm.
I mean, while the instinct to maybe ignore negativity might be understandable on a personal level,
Sure.
the social media piece rightly argues that for businesses, actively responding to negative comments actually presents some pretty significant opportunities.
How so? I mean, dealing with public criticism, that can be tough for any business.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But, well, first and foremost, it's a really powerful way to foster relationship building.
Okay.
When a business takes the time to respond thoughtfully to someone who's had a, let's say, less than positive experience,
Mm-hmm.
maybe offering an apology,
Yeah.
providing clarification, or just showing they're willing to find a solution.
Yeah.
It signals to both that individual and the wider audience that you actually value their feedback, that you're committed to customer satisfaction. This can really strengthen loyalty and trust.
That makes a lot of sense. It shows you're actively listening and you care, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And secondly, engaging with negative feedback can provide truly invaluable insights. Well, it's a direct line to understanding where things might have gone wrong. It helps identify areas for improvement in your products or services. You might even take the conversation offline to get a better handle on the issue. It's really an opportunity to learn and evolve.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, I think. It seems like both the future of journalism and effective social media strategies kind of hinge on understanding and fostering genuine engagement.
Mm-hmm.
On the social media side, there's this myth that your main focus should be increasing follower count. It's all about those big numbers, right? That's what everyone seems to chase.
That's the common perception, yeah. But the article makes a really strong case that engagement and interaction are actually significantly more meaningful metrics.
More meaningful than just the count.
Absolutely. A large number of followers doesn't automatically translate to increased brand interaction or, more importantly, actual business success. You have to think, are those followers actively interested in what you offer? Are they engaging with your content? Those are the crucial questions.
They use a really relatable analogy in the article about shopping for a dog leash online.
Oh, yeah, I like that one.
You're looking at a company's Instagram, they've got compelling photos, positive customer testimonials, they're actively responding to comments. Are you really going to stop and, scrutinize their exact follower count?
Probably not.
Probably not, right? You're far more likely to buy if you just like what you see and the brand resonates with you.
Precisely. High-quality, relevant content and proactive community management are much more likely to build genuine engagement. And that, in turn, can attract new, authentically interested followers. It's about nurturing an active, involved community, not just, accumulating a passive audience.
That idea of focusing on quality over just sheer numbers, it seems to echo in the journalism world, too. The Pew piece highlights the myth that content will always be king. It suggests that simply producing great articles or, in-depth reporting isn't necessarily a guaranteed path to success in today's media landscape.
Exactly. While exceptional content is still, foundational, the fact that this is identified as a myth implies that other elements, things like effective distribution strategies, fostering audience interaction, perhaps adapting business models, they play equally vital roles in the future of journalism.
So it's not enough just to create great stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
People need to be able to discover it and connect with it in meaningful ways.
And speaking of connecting, another social media myth that stands out is that social media is just a sales tool for businesses. It feels like a lot of companies fall into that trap, just constantly pushing products on their feeds.
They do. And the article really emphasizes the inherent social aspect of these platforms. They aren't simply another advertising channel, right?
Right.
The businesses that really thrive on social media are often the ones that engage with their audience on a more, human level, going beyond just those transactional interactions.
They bring up the 7-20-10 rule, which I found to be a really useful framework. Can you walk us through that again?
Absolutely. The 70-20-10 rule suggests that roughly 70% of your content should focus on building brand awareness and creating engaging imagery, essentially showing your brand's personality and values.
Okay, 70% brand building.
Then, around 20% should be dedicated to sharing valuable information, maybe sparking conversations, offering insights that are relevant to your audience.
So sharing useful stuff.
Yeah. And then only about 10% should be that direct promotional content for your products or services.
Only 10% selling. Wow.
It's about building that relationship and providing value first.
That makes so much sense. It prioritizes building a connection before you directly ask for a sale. They also highlight the importance of showing the human side of the business, glimpses into the office culture, personal stories, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
That really humanizes the brand, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Hmm.
People connect with other people fundamentally. By showcasing the human element of your business, you build trust, you foster relatability, and you move beyond being just like a faceless corporation trying to make a profit.
So, what does this all boil down to then? We've explored these myths in both journalism and social media. It feels like there's some really interesting parallels emerging when we look at the bigger picture.
There definitely are. Consider the journalism myth that newspapers around the world are on the decline. Now, while we've certainly seen significant disruption in the industry,
For sure.
the fact that this is presented as a myth suggests a more complex global reality. Perhaps in certain regions or within specific formats, newspapers are still finding ways to thrive or adapt in maybe unexpected ways.
Hmm.
It cautions us against accepting a simplistic, universal narrative of just decline.
Okay. And that resonates with the social media myth that you will see big results from social media in a month.
Oh, yeah.
That speaks to the need for realistic expectations, right? And a long-term strategy. You can't just dive in and expect instant success.
Exactly. Building a meaningful, impactful social media presence and nurturing that engaged community.
Yeah.
It takes sustained effort. It takes consistency over time.
Not much time.
Well, the article suggests a realistic time frame of maybe 6 to 12 months to even begin seeing consistent results.
6 to 12 months.
And while, sure, paid social advertising can certainly speed up growth, the foundation of truly engaged results still requires patience and dedication. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
A marathon, not a sprint. Got it.
Yeah.
And finally, the last journalism myth they tackle is that the solution is to focus on local news. Now, while the importance of local news is undeniable,
Absolutely crucial.
framing it as the singular solution implies that the challenges facing the industry are likely more multifaceted. They probably require a more diverse range of approaches.
Precisely. It prompts us to consider whether one single focus, even on something as vital as local news, can adequately address all the economic and structural issues at play in this, evolving media landscape.
It's really striking how both of these sets of myths, whether they're about the future of news consumption or strategies for social media, they both highlight the potential pitfalls of just making broad assumptions and accepting those surface-level narratives without looking closer. In both fields, there's a clear need to dig deeper, understand the underlying complexities.
Absolutely. What's fascinating is that both sources, kind of implicitly, encourage a more critical and strategic mindset.
How so?
Well, don't just follow the prevailing wisdom or accept the first piece of information you encounter. Instead, question the underlying assumptions, maybe analyze the available data, and focus on what truly drives connection and impact, whether that's with your news audience or your social media community.
So to recap then, we've seen that in both the evolving world of journalism and the realm of social media, it's really essential to challenge those common assumptions.
Definitely.
Whether it's the presumed decline of all traditional news or the idea you have to be on every single social platform, the reality is often far more nuanced.
Much more nuanced.
We've also underscored the importance of prioritizing genuine engagement, relationship building over those superficial metrics like just follower counts.
Yes, quality over quantity.
And finally, both areas emphasize that achieving meaningful results. It requires sustained effort and a long-term perspective. No quick fixes or overnight successes here.
Exactly. And by understanding these fundamental realities, you, our listener, can hopefully navigate the information landscape with greater clarity, make more informed decisions about how you consume news, and maybe cultivate a more impactful and authentic online presence for your business or even your personal brand.
Right. And on that note, here's maybe a final thought for you to consider. In this world that's just overflowing with information and online interactions, what other seemingly self-evident truths in your own field or maybe areas of interest might be worth questioning, worth myth-busting, to gain a deeper understanding and develop more effective strategies?
That's a good question.
And what are the long-term implications of prioritizing that genuine connection, that meaningful engagement over just chasing quick, superficial wins in the aspects of your life that really matter most to you?